Hello and welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors. We are Tribe.co. We've got the giggles.
We've got the giggles, Rob. Anyway.
Say it. Come on, say it. Read it out. I can't record it again.
We've got the giggles from the off. This is not good. Natural sports nutrition delivered direct to you. You can get a free trial pack of 6 delicious energy bars, trail mix, recovery bars and shakes for just £1. Note the difference there. £1 by using the code OXYGEN1.
Look at that. It's back at £1 and we'll talk about that later on. And also Team Oxygen Addict at team.oxygenaddict.com.
Event-specific training plans, coaching guidance from Coach Rob Wilby.
Hello.
And supportive teammates in a private Facebook group.
And hello and welcome to the show. And Helen and I have had, this is take 2 already. We've got an attack of the giggles, so I'm not going to apologise. I hope it's brightening up your morning. Hels, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine. I don't know what actually set me off. I think you said, "Oh, let's have a giggle," and then I just started laughing. So,
I do hope it's one of those contagious ones, and there are a couple of thousand people having a giggle as they go for the long run right now.
Rather than going, "Shut up, you fools." Anyway, we will be, semi-sensible as well, because we've got an exciting show this week. Because Rob, it is just a few days while we're recording this until Kona, the big one. So we're going to have the big show. So we're going to hear from Nikki Bartlett shortly, because she has been filling us in on life so far out in Kona. We caught up with her, didn't we, last week, and we heard about how she had been preparing for it, and now she's actually out there. So what's it been like for her? We will hear about that, and we will also get the biggest lowdown of lowdowns, as in the most amazing analysis of everybody competing in the pro races from Thorsten Radde at Tri-Rating. And if you haven't yet downloaded it, go and check it out and give him a few enough money for a coffee, because he put so much work into that. So go and have a look at that, and we will have the details shortly later on in the podcast.
We sure will, and we've got some results, and we've got a coach's couch, and we've got some news and all kinds of stuff as well. So shall we kick it off with Nikki's Kona Diary, Hels? I
think so. Nikki Bartlett, over to you.
Hey guys, it's day 1 and we are in Kona. Oh my god, it is incredible. We've got massive jet lag today. I mean, it took about just over 20 hours of travelling, and then we went back 11 hours. It was really confusing. So we left the UK early Sunday morning, and then supposedly it's Sunday night, but we've travelled nearly 24 hours, So feeling the jet lag today, but oh my god. So we woke up and we went for a 6 a.m. run just to flush out the legs, just for about 30 minutes. Proper Brits abroad, didn't know where we were going. And then we wanted to chill out and have a good breakfast, because it was a bit weird with eating on the plane, and we actually fell asleep on the second flight, so we didn't get any food. And then we tried to get to sleep here, so we haven't had food for a while, so we went and had breakfast at this incredible cafe, which just overlooked the whole of the swim course, and it was just stunning. It was little crabs, little birds coming onto our table. The staff were really friendly. It was just really nice food, some good coffee. And then after that we came back, chilled for a bit, and then we went and met Susie and did a swim in the Kona pool, which we're only going to do a few swims there because it's going to get rammed pretty quickly. We just did a nice easy set with some lifting in it, just so we didn't get too ploddy. And then we came back and tried to deal with jet lag and push through to the final hours of the evening. But as day 1 goes in Kona, it is pretty special, pretty hot, pretty humid. I can't wait to get on to day 2. Day 2 in Kona. Today, I think, just summed up how, on those days where you just feel like you're very lucky to be alive. The day started with, I'd been awake since between 2 and 3:30. I really struggled to go to sleep. So I woke up and I was pretty tired, but that soon went out the pan. I met, myself and Bex met up with Graham Brookhouse, who's top age group of racing. We went down and did a swim recce. Oh my God, it was incredible. The sun was out, there were so many people down, but not too many people that was overcrowded, and just swimming in clear blue waters with turtles, fish. It was just incredible. And there's so many friendly people around. We actually made friends with the girl in the water. And had a good chat with her and her partner who's racing afterwards. Oh my God, the swim was just amazing. So we did an out and back on the course recce, as close to the course recce as you can go at the moment, because you can only kind of go up one side and you can't go on the far side. A good solid hour of swimming, which was covered about 3.8k-ish. And then after that we came back, got ready, and then we went over to Susie's place and we did a bike ride on the bike course, which it kind of just describes how tough this race really is. I mean, the swim isn't going to be easy. The bike course is, I think people have a perception that it's dead flat and dead fast. I mean, it is a fast course, but there are inclines and there is the wind to consider. But yeah, it was just really nice to get out on the course and suffer a bit in the heat. Today it was pretty hot and pretty humid. It's hard to describe how it feels until you actually come out here, but there's something very special about the island, and then there's something very special about the conditions. It is very sticky. It's kind of like that, that hairdryer / oven feeling. It's good to start getting used to it early, and I'm so glad I did some heat chamber work, because I'm finding it tough, but actually I've been exposed to it before I came out, so I knew what to expect. But yeah, it's just been a really nice day, and looking forward to tomorrow. Hopefully going to go and see some more turtles and fish. That'd be awesome. It's now day 5. The days are just flying by at the moment, so actually I'm going to wake up tomorrow. It's only going to be a week to race day, which I don't know how that's even possible. But we've seen quite a lot of the course now, so I thought I'll just give a little detailed description for those who are interested in knowing what Kona course is like, or those who are trying to qualify for next year, perhaps, or coming out late this year. The swim is pretty straightforward. It's 1.9k out, 1.9k back. Not too much to report on. There will be chop from probably safety boats out, and just the fact that it's the sea. What I've learned about the bike course is it isn't flat and fast. That I don't know how people have come to this assumption that it can be flat and fast. It is kind of just not that at all, really. It's got lumps in it. It's got drags, mainly drags. It doesn't have, I wouldn't say there's a climb, so to speak, but there is a drag here, there, and everywhere. But the wind is just insane. I mean, kind of like you kind of pedaling along, and all of a sudden gusts come, and you do actually move a lot on your bike. So it's one of those that actually you go headwind out and you think, oh, I'll get a tailwind back, but it kind of hasn't happened yet. So there's the wind, which is probably one of the most brutal parts to the course. I mean, it doesn't cool you down at all, because it is just like an oven and hairdryer feeling the whole time you're here. The humidity is just insane. The heat is just constant. There's no getting away from it. And on the run course, we have done quite a bit of the run course now, and we actually went to the energy lab, and it is just a whole new level of heat. You think it's hot everywhere else, and then you get to this famous energy lab, and it's just like you're probably in there for about 20 minutes, but it's like an oven taken to a whole new level of heat. I mean, it's just mental. And what I discovered is actually feels like your feet are on fire as well. So for anyone racing, a selection of sock choice is probably quite important, because I have heard that you kind of have on fire feet the whole time you're on the run course. Luckily for pros on the run course, we actually have an extra eight stations, but there is actually 8 stations every mile on the run, just because it's so hot out there. You just need ice all the time. I mean, we went out to do a run session today, and we thought I'd be okay for about 40 minutes of the run session without fluid, but actually it was just by 20 minutes I was really dehydrated. So you really do have to think about hydration. I mean, at home in the UK, and you kind of, if you're going out for a session, sometimes like, I probably won't need fluid for that, but here it's a whole new level of thinking about nutrition. I know that I'm going to actually use all 8 aid stations on the run, and I will be thinking about the even special needs on the bike too. Sometimes you have to, kind of take a hit on aerodynamics on your bike and make sure you're set up right so you've got access to nutrition all the time. I do actually think the heat is going to be the biggest game changer for everyone racing. It's just, you're just looking at people out training and everyone's just melting trying to get used to the conditions. I think until you've come out, it's really hard to describe. I even when I'd done the heat chamber sessions, I was like, nah, it probably won't be that bad, like I've prepared for the worst, but actually it is just, the only way I could describe it is that feeling of a hairdryer or in an oven, like the whole time you're here. You're waking up in the morning and it's already plus 30 degrees. Yeah, it's just insane. But yeah, now we've got to know the course. I think in summary, it's a really hard course. The run is really lumpy and hilly. The bike is lumpy and windy and a sea swim. So in summary, the course is pretty hard. And then on top of that, you've got the heat conditions, which is just takes it to a whole new level. So Kona summed up, if you can't really make it any harder, I don't think. But I like hard races, so I'm looking forward to it. And we're nearing a week until race day. So yeah, things are heating up and a lot more people are arriving now. So it's getting pretty busy. So yeah, that's the Kona course.
I am not jealous at all.
It's good detail there about the course, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if one day, Rob, you were to get that big queue, you could you now have a bit of a better insight into what it would actually be like. I have really enjoyed actually listening to Nikki's pieces because you can hear the excitement in her voice about just being there and seeing all of these incredible things, like the turtles, like the dolphins, like the palm trees and the turquoise waters. And it's just incredible that, what she has achieved in the past couple of years and to have qualified and everything like that. And I know a few people are saying, a few people are like, you're not so much under the radar now, are you? But it'll be, it's going to be a great race. But it's just refreshing to have almost like a Kona innocence and just that genuine excitement compared to, yes, I'm just going to stick to my race.
So many people, they go there and they race and they get hammered by the heat and humidity and all of that. And it becomes like that's what people associate racing with Kona with. But actually, you look at it through those eyes and go, of course it is. It's turtles and palm trees and sunshine and beaches and good on her.
The ridiculous heat as well, like she was explaining, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, that real remembering how amazing it is to be there.
Yeah, that's just brilliant.
So, cool, isn't it?
Well, we'll look forward to. Well, it's going to be Nikki's race recap, isn't it? By the time we get to next week, with how it actually. I'm dead interested to hear that, like from the horse's mouth, and Neo Pro racing at Kona in the pro race. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, well, we were just, I was just messaging her, and we were getting a little bit confused about time zones and days and dates and everything like that. But all being well, it should happen, and we will be having a catch up post race and before. Crossed. Yeah, so fingers crossed. Yeah, so best of luck to everybody out there racing. And Rob, you know how this time of year, and Nikki was describing it very nicely about swimming with turtles and everything, but it goes dark pretty quickly now in the UK, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. It's
and you're thinking,
outside.
This is well depressing. And then you wake up and you maybe, I don't know, go on Twitter and you see loads of people just in there, well, practically with no clothes on, out in Hawaii, or I've been on the the Queen K today, I've been running in the energy lab, and you're just like, oh, stop it now, all right? I don't want any more. Charlie Pennington sent us a photo saying, is this what you wanted to see? Which is him running in just his shorts and lots of palm trees behind him.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah. Not jealous at all. Thanks, mate.
Not jealous. Ruth Purbrook sent us one saying she didn't manage to find any dolphins this morning, only the speedy one-armed Will Clark. So a nice little video of him swimming. But other people have been in touch, Rob, and they've sent us some training pictures of the real autumn. So David Moulding sent us one saying, bit dark in the hills, early doors. Lindsay Beale has been out on her new cross bike. Tri Mechanics Tom sent one of a very interesting looking fungi. So that was out on his run. Chris Potter sent us one TTing in the pouring rain in Cambridgeshire. He says, who needs the Queen K? Tom has sent us a photo clearly of his TT bike with mud all over it. Tom Moon saying, felt like I was mountain biking, not road biking. Andy Sloan is trying to get in there as well from Kona, but I'm sorry, you're on the Queen K. So, yep. Andy, have a great race. And then we've had Alistair Horrobin sent us one, Winter Games cross training. Mandy Clark, this one I was impressed with, sent us a couple of photos from the Brecker swim run saying swimming still going on in the UK, admittedly not quite Kona water temperatures. How nice that would be. Zaid Altawheel sent us one again of his TT bike covered in mud. We're loving it, Rob, loving it. And then the other one, Lisa Norden, the Swedish Olympic silver medalist from 2012, she also tweeted saying, Sweden keeps one reel, cycling in Stockholm during October, not so glam, and a photo of her covered in mud. That's what we like, Rob.
Covered in mud. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for all of your photos. Kona ones as well, because quite frankly, they brighten up they do brighten up your day, don't you, when you see all these turquoise waters. But yeah, keeping it real in the mud, aren't we?
Sure are. All right, let's do some results, shall we? Excuse me, losing my voice.
It's winter. It's all right. Yeah, let's start off in Hawaii, because that is that's the big chat this week, isn't it? So the massive swim that they do just before the World Championships, and there was a great photo finish on the line, but Harry Wiltshire just managed to, I think he got his knee or his foot ahead of Mike Torren of Sweden, so they both came out of the water pretty much together, but
right.
Yeah, and then Harry just got him on the line.
Just got him with a lunge for the line, was it?
Yeah, but they both tried to dip their heads, and I think they were like, oh yeah, forgot that it's actually your foot or something like that first over. So really it was a proper photo finish, but there's a really cool photo that Rob Holden has taken of them, the two of them kind of in their ankles running out the water, and Lucy Charles just emerging behind them, because she was third overall in that swim, first female out the water. So yeah, brilliant swimming from the lot of them. And so Wiltshire took it out in 48:43.9, just ahead of Mike Torren of Sweden, 44.0. Then Lucy Charles, 3 seconds behind them. Tim Don behind Lucy, and then Lucy's fiance Reece Barkley just 2 more seconds behind Tim Don, still going under that 49-minute mark.
Hey, I tell you what, that's a great swim for Reece, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
Like, great swims for all of them, obviously, but he was miles behind Lucy last year, if I remember rightly. Not miles, but you know what I mean.
A little bit further.
He's raised his game.
You would though, wouldn't you?
It'd be hard not to, really, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
What are we doing? We're going swimming. Oh, okay.
That's obviously how they met, though, isn't it? You know, when they were both swimming together. Then, Rob, the other name that we've got to mention, Lionel Sanders.
Yeah, now then.
Yeah.
Only 4 minutes down.
Yep. Less than 4 minutes from Wiltshire.
That is very eyebrow-raising, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really excited to see what happens on race day now.
Yeah, totally. So last year, putting it into a little bit of context, he was 9 minutes back from Harry Wiltshire.
In the same swim or on Kona race day?
Good question.
Well, even so, regardless, I mean, to be within 4 minutes of Harry Wiltshire.
Exactly.
It's, yeah, fair play.
Yeah, so nice swimming there from all the fish, and from Lionel Sanders as well. It's pretty insane.
Sure is. Now then, from exotic locations to slightly less exotic locations, to the Oulton Park Duathlon here in sunny Cheshire. It wasn't that sunny this weekend, was it, unfortunately?
No, it was pretty overcast. The sprint race was an ETU qualifier, Rob, and the standard was the national championships. So there were a load of quick people there racing as ever. Massively busy race. I was there with Raceforce, being a race buddy and spreading the Raceforce word. And it was great as ever. Really well organised from Extra Mile events. It's fantastic. It is a great race. I think it's pretty unique that you get to run and ride around at a racing car circuit.
It's ace, isn't it? Yeah, you get to rad around. It feels a bit like being a Lego man, though, because I think that like the roads are so wide and the corners are so long and sweeping. It feels all out of, you know what I mean? Or sort of out of proportion kind of thing.
I get what you mean. There are some bits where you really can.
You feel you're going really slowly relative to your surroundings because everything's, you know.
Do you think there was one bit where I felt like I was kind of flying, but then there were other bits whereby you expect it to be pancake flat because you see race, Grand Prix circuits or whatever on TV, don't you?
Not, is it?
Oh no, there's two little lumps in there, and for the sprint race you have to do 5 laps, and by lap 3 on those little lumps your legs are thinking, oh, all right, oh no, how am I going to do lap 5?
It's definitely undulating for sure. It's not flat.
Definitely. No, and then there's a number of corners, especially yesterday it was still pretty greasy surface-wise, so you had to take care on those corners. But yeah, as ever, a really, really great race and a lot of very, very fast racing. So should we start with the sprint, Rob, because that was that ETU qualifier?
Yeah, so in the sprint race it was taken out by Matt Barnes from Manchester Tri Club. He did 1:01.06 from Nick Samuels in 1:02 flat and Ed Auden in 1:02.03 in third place.
And in the women's race, Becky Tipping of Brat Club took it out in 1:10.21 ahead of Helen Sargle of Mersey Tri Club and then Jill Mead of Chester Tri Club. About a minute behind the winner.
In the standard distance race, the national championships, Henry Irvin took that out in 1:37.23 from Ian Lawton in 1:40 and Donald Brooks 20 odd seconds behind in 1:40.45. So nice work there.
And Becky Lewis took the women in the women's race in 1:54.55 from Mid Shropshire Wheelers. Birmingham Uni Tri Club Zoe Chandler was second, and then Rhiann Roxburgh of GOG Triathlon Club was third in 1:59.34.
And the most noticeable result, the winner of the sprint relay event, Helen Murray. Another podium for the Murray Mint.
The winner and loser, Rob.
No, you're not the loser. You're the first winner. You might have been the only competitor. But that's still a win, right? If no one else turns up, it's still a win, Helen. Chalk it up. Get it on the mantelpiece. Get your mug on there. Do you get a mug for that?
No. Relays don't get any prizes.
I'm going to buy you a mug. That's harsh.
Thanks. I've got 2 in my cupboard.
Let's have a whip round to crowdsource an extra mile mug for Helen.
I've got 2. And so I think a third would be greedy, but it was great fun. So I clearly still can't run, so I had to bring in a little bit of help from my lovely sister-in-law Claire Jones, who is a fine runner, Rob. And she did both runs for me. I did the bike, and I think she crossed the line. I think 7th female.
Very good.
Yeah. So we kind of cheated because there were 2 of us putting an effort together, but. It was great fun. I would thoroughly recommend it. If you are injured maybe from running and you can't run but you can bike, go and do a duathlon relay with a friend and just a bit of fun.
Yeah, it's great. And we should today say here that the results section is sponsored by our friends Tribe. We are tribe.co. And this week we're going to tell you about their Infinity Energy bars, aren't we, Hells?
Oh my God, Rob, they fueled me. Apart from the pizza and the pasta, those times when we couldn't quite find a gelato stop, they genuinely fueled me on my Italy ride, and they were just delicious. Like 35 grams of yummy, complex carbs, slow release energy, and they come in, I think, 3 different flavors. The banoffee one and the chocolate salt one were yummy, and the classic one was pretty fine too. So yeah, Infinity Energy bars did the trick on the bike on a long distance ride through Italy.
You've got to go with the chocolate salt as a favourite, I think. I don't think anything touches the chocolate salt hills.
I liked all of them. Genuinely, really liked all of them.
Yeah, but chocolate salt's my favourite, I think.
All right. Well, you can take chocolate salt.
If I had to be sent a box of them by anybody listening, I think the chocolate salt would take the.
Okay. Well, honestly, give them a whirl. If you are going out for some, I don't know, longer rides, or out on your mountain bike, or getting a few miles in your legs over the winter, then definitely look into getting some Infinity energy bars, because they're good.
No
and they don't. I was going to say they taste pretty damn fine and natural. And I know that they consulted with loads of ultra runners and transcontinental cyclists and polar explorers when they were producing their Infinity energy bars. So they have been tested by people like you, like me.
That's you, Hels. Transcontinental cyclist these days, isn't it?
Trans-Italy cyclist, I reckon.
Trans-country.
Yeah, trans-country cyclist. That's me. Yeah.
Top stuff. Right, so get yourself over then to wearetribe.co and use the code Oxygen1. And you get yourself a box of 6 for just £1 using the code Oxygen1. What could be simpler, Helen?
Nothing more, Rob.
No-brainer.
Nothing more could be simpler. Shall we go on to Coach's Couch?
Yes, let's do that, because we had a great question over on, I think it came in on Facebook, this one, from Kieran Kapoor.
Yeah, and he says, I've just treated myself to a power meter, and I'm desperately trying to find a previous podcast episode that I can remember listening to with regards to power meter metrics. I remember Rob talking about 3-second and 10-second average power and what to monitor on your bike computer. Can you please go over how to make sense of the data?
Brilliant question. Nice one, Kieran. And I think it's definitely a common one that we get within the team Facebook group when people get the first power meter, because the reality of using one, and I've said this a few times, so if people have heard this before, they'll can be going, yeah, okay. But if you're a first time listener, the power meter numbers that you'll see, there's a bit of an art to reading, and it is more of an art than a science to actually reading and making sense of the numbers as you're going along. Now, the numbers are definitely useful after the event as well, when you're sitting down and having a look at your data. But as you're riding along, that's where it can be really useful, but you've got to be able to make sense of that data. So the first thing to mention is, like back in the early days of power meters, one of the first power meter manufacturers, I knew a guy who worked there, and they used to jokingly refer to it as their random number generator. And they would do that because it just showed the power, and like every half a second it would update the power, and the numbers just jumped all over the place, from 5 watts to 1,000 watts to 200 watts to 450 watts. It just made no sense, and it looked like it was just a bunch of random numbers on the screen. So every power meter averages out the power over a given period of time to give you something that your eyeballs and brain can make sense of. And the instantaneous power reading is going to jump around a lot still, and it isn't going to be that much use for you. Even the 1 second average that Garmin take it down to is not that much use to you. In order to have something that your brain can look at and make sense of, my advice is to have a few data screens up on your Garmin or whatever kind of head unit that you're using. The most important ones, I think, to have up are 3-second power, 10-second power, and 30-second power. And what they are is an average of the power that you've put out over the last 3 seconds, 10 seconds, and 30 seconds. And they are going to be slightly different to each other. Obviously, the 3-second power is going to jump around a bit more than the 10-second power. And the 30-second power number is going to stay about the same. And it's important that your brain can then make sense of that, to kind of look down and go, right, for the last 30 seconds, I've put out, whatever it is, 200 watts. The 10-second power is 180 watts. So the power I've put out a bit more recently has dropped off a bit from the 30-second average that I was looking at. So you need to learn to read these few different data fields in a way that makes sense to you. And to go on a little bit from that, to make sense of those three numbers, a real good tip I've got for you is, if you set up another data field with the average power for the lap split. So every time you're riding along, every time you press the sort of lap button or the split button, whatever you want to call it, you'll start to get a new average over the time that you've pressed that down. So my advice to people is, whenever the terrain changes, press that button, and then the average power for the lap field that you're looking at is going to tell you the power that you've put out in average since the terrain changed. So if you start to climb a hill, press that button and it'll tell you the average power you've done since the start of the hill. Because quite often what happens is, even without realizing it, you put out a lot more power going up a hill, even if you're not intending to. And that would get lost if you're just looking at the average power of the ride. That would completely get lost in that. So you need to use the head unit as a tool as you're riding along. As you go over the brow of the hill, press split again so you can see what you're doing. Not necessarily what you're doing on the downhill, but you can then press it again at the bottom of the downhill to take out that bit from the data that you're looking at. So they're really the numbers that I think are important, the 4 main ones for you to look at. You can also have your heart rate on, and it's good then to compare your heart rate against the power, and you'll get a good feel for what your heart's doing as you're riding along and how you can expect your heart rate to fluctuate. And obviously it's going to lag behind the power changes. And I'm a big fan of having your overall ride time on the Garmin and also the average speed and the actual speed you're doing at the time. So you can tell just from that little few minutes I've talked there, there's loads of information to get yourself into, and it isn't for everybody, but it will take anybody who's starting to use this a good few rides to kind of get the head around it. So as soon as you get one, get it on your bike, go out for a ride, don't change anything, don't do any testing, just get used to glancing down at the power meter at these numbers and trying to make sense of however you're riding and how it feels, which is what you'll be familiar with, to the kind of numbers that you're putting out before you even worry about doing functional threshold tests and things like that. That makes sense, Hells?
Excellent answer.
Without getting too involved and into it, really. So I hope that helps, Kieran. Any more questions, fire us a question over to help@oxygenaddict.com. And the same goes to anyone else who's got a question. You can send us a question in for Coach's Couch, either there or on Twitter, where we are at OA Tri Podcast, or on Facebook, where we are at OA Podcast.
Brilliant. Rob, a little bit of news for you.
Yeah.
And then we will hear from Thorsten. And I think before we hear from Thorsten, you usually do this to me. So you usually say, Hells, who are your Kona picks this year? And I'm like, oh my God. Oh. But actually, I wrote mine down about a week ago.
Did you really?
Yeah. So there we go. So I'll give you a moment.
No, that's good. Yeah, let's go.
While we do some news.
Let's go.
So first up, we had Macca on the show.
You are actually giving me a gap. That's good of you.
Yeah. I'm a kind person, Rob. You should know this by now.
I've got in my head. I've talked to Thorsten. I know what does that say.
All right. So we had Macca on the show a couple of months ago talking about Super League Triathlon in Jersey. We had Dan Hawksworth on talking about how brilliant Super League had been as well. You might have watched it when it was in Hamilton Island, the first one. So Penticton in Canada, which had the multi-sport festival this year, is going to host Super League Triathlon in August 2018, along with a special age group event as well. So Penticton really was it was an incredible sort of festival, wasn't it, with all of the different championships going on. So it sounds pretty exciting. What'll be happening in British Columbia in the middle of next August, basically. And pro athletes from a whole load of disciplines are going to have the chance to earn qualification into like Super League Triathlon Championship Series. So yeah, it just all sounds quite exciting for next year. So we've got that coming, haven't we? We've got the Collins Cup coming.
Do you know what? The thing I love about that is that Penticton was one of those towns that loved Ironman Canada when it was there. And when they packed up the bags and went somewhere else, the community just rallied around and wanted triathlon there still. And obviously Challenge went there. But it reminds me of when Ironman went from what's now Challenge Roth to Frankfurt, and the community rallies around and says, we still want to have the event. We love triathlon here. So that's ace, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really exciting. So I just think, again, they're throwing something else into the mix, aren't they? With the shorter form, with the more exciting form. It isn't necessarily all about, I guess previously, all about Olympic or all about Ironman. It's just chucking it out there, different things, and making it exciting.
They had Super League happening in Roth at the same weekend that Roth was happening.
Wow. Who knows, Rob? These conversations might be being had.
Maybe.
You never know.
Get Mackie back on and ask him. Because Mackie loved Roth, didn't he?
Yeah.
He was always there.
Yeah. And then, Rob, I did want to give a bit of a shout out for Kelly Stokes, who I know is a listener of the show. And I mentioned her at Long Course Weekend because she is an Uber swimmer and an Uber biker. And she had a brilliant race at Ironman Maryland this past weekend where I think it was an age group race only, and she was second female overall, second in her age group. So Kelly Stokes will be heading to Kona in 2018.
Nice one. That's brilliant. Second overall,
great,
imagine that.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? So yeah,
Really
well
is,
done,
yeah.
Kelly. Great work.
Great work. And that just about takes us to our interview of the week with our friend Thorsten from tryrating.com. So anyone who's super keen to find out what's going on at Kona, check out this interview. He's the man who knows the stats from this year, and he's got some interesting predictions. So here we go. Thorsten Radde, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you on, man. And I believe you're really struggling with the weather out there in Hawaii right now, right?
Oh yeah, it's totally miserable weather out there. Hot, humid, just as you expect. So thanks for having me. Thanks for the chat, and glad we could work out the timing with the big time difference that we have here. But my wife and I have traveled to Hawaii. A bit of vacation time before the race, and then we're looking forward to watch the race as it unfolds on location in how much do we have? 3 weeks and a bit, I think.
Hey, well, look, I'm not jealous at all. I'm sitting here looking out of my window, and we've had pretty much consistent drizzle for the last, 3 months or so. So I'm very glad that you're out there enjoying the beach and the sunny weather, mate.
Yeah, I mean, the weather in Germany is not that much different from the UK, so I guess we've had a similar summer to you guys, and I've always been saying to my colleagues at work that summer will come in October, and it took them a while to get what I was referring to.
I bet a few of them are not so happy with you right now, man. Just like all my listeners sitting here looking out the grey windows, not jealous at all.
Yeah, we're loving it here. It's really great to be out here, something we've been dreaming of for quite some time, and happy to finally see it come true.
Oh, well, it's brilliant to have you out there. And I'm excited for you to be able to actually watch the race in person. Now, for people who haven't heard our previous shows with you or who don't know who you are probably the world's most knowledgeable statistician about professional Ironman triathlon racing. And you've got a wonderful website called tryrating.com that is pretty much updated on a twice weekly basis. And for anyone who is interested in racing and the pros and stats and things, it makes for fascinating reading. And the reason I was really excited to get you back on was because there's probably nobody knows more about the inner workings of the pro triathletes in the lead up to Kona than you do. Because as well as knowing all these stats, you've developed really good relationships with a vast majority of the pros over the years as well. So I'm hoping we're going to get a little bit of insider gossip during the time of talking to you as well.
Yeah, not so sure about the gossip part, but all the rest sounded pretty good to me.
We'll see. So the first thing to mention is you've got your Kona rating report is out now. It's available on your website. It's available for free for people if they want to just download it and not pay you for your work. But it's also available there as donationware, isn't it, essentially? And people can offer to donate whatever they think it's worth. I've got a copy here and I think it's brilliant. And for a stats geek like me, I'm sitting here and I've been reading this for about the last 40 minutes. I've been having my dinner and reliving last year's race, and it's blooming brilliant. So it must take you forever to put this stuff together, Thorsten.
Well, there's parts that I can reuse. I mean, the course doesn't change too much, but lots of the stuff that just I collect over the year, and then once the field finalizes, I get a chance to sit down and picture in my mind how the race might actually unfold and the different strengths and weaknesses of the athletes, how they're going to play into this year's race. And then it's just a couple of evenings and some short nights to sit down and write, and then finally kick myself in the butt to actually release it. I mean, there's always more that I could write. There's more athletes I could highlight. There's more data angles I could look into. But yeah, it's a lot of fun for me to put that together. To talk with as many athletes in the Kona Pro field as possible and get their views on how they view their chances and their race. And it's just amazing to hear all the different stories and insights and ways people attack their races and how humble and challenged a lot of them are. preparing for Kona and how hard it is for them. I mean, it's not different to the average age group for getting ready for such a big race. I mean, they're just as scared and afraid and anxious about the upcoming race. But I mean, they're just racing on a different level than you and I do. So it's always interesting to hear someone talk about an easy 4-minute pace run per K. And I don't know if I'll ever get to that level. Probably not at all.
Well, the thing that you do that's really cool, I think, is you manage to lay out each athlete with sort of predicted swim, bike and run times, and not necessarily that those predicted swim, bike and run times are actually ever meant to come true, because obviously the conditions on the day play a big part in that. But what I find really interesting watching the races,
especially in Kona.
Well, exactly, yeah. There's probably nowhere else in the world where swims can be long or choppy or wavy or covered in swell, and the wind on the bike obviously plays such a massive part. But it gives us a real insight into where we can expect the athletes to be relative to each other based on the previous their previous performances, if you like. So I want to jump right in, and I want to ask you, well, we'll have a little bit of a chat about last year's race first, if that's all right. And the real standout performance there, I think, was Patrick Lange from Germany, who almost seemed to come out of nowhere and end up on the podium in his first Kona. So was that a big surprise to you? Was he kind of completely out of left field as well?
Well, I mean, I had him kind of tagged as someone who might be able to get into the top 10, but it's always tricky as a rookie to aim for a really high finish. I mean, I think there's only a handful of athletes that have ever managed to do that in Kona, at least in the recent years, to come onto the podium or even win the race in their first race on the island. And I mean, he was kind of unproven over the Ironman distance last year. He did win Ironman Texas, that's where he got a slot, but that was the shortened Texas race with the bike course, I think being 90-something miles or so. So you didn't really know what to expect of him. We knew he was a great runner, but for him to be able to run through the field as he did, that was just really amazing to see. And one of the emotional highlights, seeing him cross the finish line on the totally flashed and beyond anything that he ever thought he'd be able to do. That was really a great, emotional thing to witness last year. But completely left field, I don't think so. But podium, certainly a big surprise and something he was really happy with.
And I suppose looking forward to this year, obviously he managed to break Mark Allen's long-standing run course record by going 2:39.45. Mm-hmm. He ran himself onto the podium, and one of the really interesting things you've got as part of your Kona rating report is it's like a graph of the time differences between each athlete at each checkpoint. And there's I don't know, there's something great about the way that you represent it like that, because it really allows you to sort of see how the race must have played out in real time, and how he made up a huge chunk of time over the last 10 miles on pretty much everybody in the field, but especially Frodo and Sebi at the front of the run. And this is after he'd had a penalty for blocking, hadn't he, on the bike, if I remember rightly? Yeah,
he had a penalty pretty early on the bike, and I thought that pretty much was the end of his good first race in Kona, because he was losing 5 minutes, getting dropped from the front group, but he continued to race really smart after that. Didn't do anything crazy on the bike to try and stay with any make up time to the front group or something like that. He just rode on his steady pace, and probably it helped him somewhat to be able to still run well in the end. But to see him run through the field in such a fashion, and then catching one athlete after another, running through the whole front field except for Frodo and Sebi, which he almost caught up to in the end, that was really great to see. And I don't think he will ever be able to repeat that high. We'll see, but he's still a pretty young athlete on the Ironman distance. But it will certainly be one of the highlights of his career for him. Yeah, and I'd love to talk to him, because looking at the final stats here, we got a 5-minute penalty on the bike, and he ended up 4 minutes 45 behind the finish line. Yes, Frodo. And I mean, fair play, only a minute behind Seb Kienle at the finish despite that. Now, obviously, you can't say, well, without the penalty, he might have. But he must have had a few nights where he falls asleep thinking, what if, mustn't he? Well, I think, it's hard to tell. I mean, I spoke to him a couple of times, and he seemed to kind of resigned of the fact that that's the way it was. And maybe if I'd had to ride with the front group, I'd have had to ride harder on the bike and not have had quite the run legs that I had last year. But I think looking forward to this year's race, the interesting part will be that probably for the first time with Frodo in the race, we have someone who's probably a stronger runner than Frodo, or at least you could envision someone running away from Frodo. Whereas the last years, he was always able to just stick with the front group and then pretty much be assured that on a good day, he'd be the best runner among the front group. So with Patrick in the race, that might change the way he has to approach the race too. So that's the really interesting part for me, is how that will influence this year's race.
Well, let me ask you about that then. If you were a gambling man and you had to bet on the $1 million question, if you had to bet on what you thought was going to happen this year in the men's race, how do you see things playing out? I mean, I think everybody's probably got Jan Frodeno and Seb Kienle pegged for 1 and 2 and having the same kind of head-to-head battle that they had last year. But something that was really interesting, I think, that wasn't really commented on in the press, but is in your report, was just how deep Jan Frodeno had to go and what a state he was in at the finish after last year.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that impressed me very much about last year's too, is that you never had the feeling that Frodo was in trouble during the race. He always looked confident and strong, and maybe he lost it. There were a couple of times where he lost a couple of seconds to the front bike group, but he was always within like 20 or 30 seconds of the lead. You never had the feeling that he had problems or was about to drop off or so. But after he crossed the finish line, he was pretty much out of it. And I think he even had problems going up on the podium for the champagne ceremony, because he had to be helped up there. He was really leaving everything out there. He wasn't having a good day, according to his words, but still he was able to beat them and project this aura of invincibility. Maybe I'm reading a bit too much into that, but he always seemed to be under control of everything. Whereas after the race, we could realize that wasn't the case at all. He was working really hard to do what he was able to do. He won the race. He was in a good position there. After half of the run, he was under control, but even then he was struggling. So we'll see if additional pressure this year is going to change that, and maybe this year they'll be able to crack him a little bit, because there's a bunch more athletes that would like to have a little nibble at his throne there.
Yeah, and you're dead right what you say. It's amazing how the best athletes make it look effortless when actually they're really suffering as much as anybody is. And to see him in such a state afterwards, it really makes you realise what an incredible poker face he had as much as anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's something conscious. It's just something that you just work on. I mean, Lionel Sanders is the complete opposite. He always looks like he's about to drop down and pass out or something. That's just the way they are, but they don't show in their demeanor when things change for them. And I guess that's something that is pretty much what you have to do when you're racing at that level. You can't show any weakness, or give your competitor any energy by showing a weakness. So a lot of them are just that way. I mean, Rini was that way. Daniela is that way. A lot of others are just when they're on, they're on, and then you can't really touch them.
Yeah. And who are your athletes to watch then on the men's side? Who do you think might get in there and do something interesting based on what you've seen this year? I mean, you mentioned Lionel Sanders a minute ago, and he's had an amazing season again at 70.3, and then I don't want to say switched his focus to Kona later on in the season, but it certainly took me by surprise that it's always not at the 70.3 Worlds he's going for Kona. So do you think that there's something we can read into that or infer from that?
Well, I mean, the way Lionel wouldn't start Kona if he didn't think he'd have a reasonable chance of doing really well there. And I don't know if it's going for the title, but at least him being in a different position than last year. Last year, he was so far behind after the swim, and he wasn't able to catch on to the front group. And that pretty much ruined his race when the front group was gone, and he just had to play catch up most of the day. tried his best, but then didn't quite have the run he was looking for. His decision to go to Kona, after all, shows to me that he thinks his swim has so much improved that he has a decent chance of catching up to the front group. I mean, if you look at last year, you had Sebi, who was 4 minutes or so back after the swim, Boris Stein, who was 6 minutes, and Lionel, who was like 8 minutes back after the swim. I think his goal this year will be to somewhere be between Sebi and Boris Stein, and then team up with them to help him get to the front group of the race there. And if he manages to do that, then I guess all bets are off for him, because the way he's been racing Submarine and all the 70.3 races, whenever there was a one-on-one racing kind of situation, he was really feeding off that and getting energy from the other guys there.
Yeah.
And to see that in Kona, that'll be really interesting. I mean, I can't see him, drop off the pace on his own. He'll probably just fall off the bike first before letting the front group go once he was able to catch up to them. So that'll be really interesting to see how that turns out for him.
And is there anyone else you think we need to keep an eye out for? Anyone else?
I mean, the other interesting one that I think will be maybe a bit of a surprise at the front of the race will be Ironman Wales winner Cameron Worth. He's a good swimmer, an excellent biker. I mean, he's got a background as a professional bike rider. And it'll be interesting to see where he comes out of the water, but he could be somewhere around Sebi. And if he catches up to the front group with Sebi, or in front of him maybe even, I don't think he'll be into too much tactical games in the front group. He'll put down the wattage that he would like to put down, and I could likely see him right off the front of the group there. I don't think he'll be a contender for any podium or maybe top 10 finishes in the end. That's because his run is not quite where it needs to be for a good result in Kona, but he could really shake up things at the front on the bike race. And if he rides off the front, then it'll be interesting to see if someone is able to latch onto him and maybe team up with him. I mean, that would be the ideal scenario for Sebi. Team up with Cameron Wolf, ride off the front group together with him, put like 5 minutes into Frodo in T2. And that would be the scenario that Sebi probably has in mind for winning the race this year.
Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, I don't know if that'll happen. But it could turn out that Cam, they just let Cam ride off the front because they know he's not a real contender for a top finish. But if Sebi tries to go with him, then I expect the bike pace to be crazy fast because Frodo can't afford to let Sebi go. A bunch of the others will want to latch on to him too. And a really fast bike ride in Kona with, everyone pretty much going all out, that could shake things up for the run again as well, because they've been riding fast in the past, but probably not at the level that would happen if Sebi goes off the front and they need to play catch up and there's a little subgroups forming and so on. So that could also influence then how the run turns out. So that could be an interesting scenario.
Sure could. I'm getting excited just thinking about it, man.
Oh, man. I've been getting excited about this for weeks and weeks, and I'd love to share all the pre-race excitement there.
You're right. Your predictions are probably going to be more exciting than the actual race itself turns out to be. Let's see. Huh? All right, let's go over to the ladies' side.
That's the thing that I sometimes find frustrating is that these little things that are going on, that's stuff that needs to be caught by the commentators, and they need to kind of build on the excitement there. And that's something that is really hard to get off the cameras. The pictures that we get from Kona is to actually try and figure out, okay, what's everyone trying to do here? We can be pretty certain that it's not a group of 10 people out on a leisurely Saturday afternoon ride there. There'll be a lot of games and tactics going on there, and I think there's a lot of fascination that we could relate to the people watching the race that sometimes get missed because, well, we don't get the pictures or we don't get the commentary for that.
Yeah, you're dead. You're dead right with that, because when we talked with Joe Skipper after Kona last year, he gave us his take on what it was like, sort of having ridden up to the pack, and then his experience of like yo-yoing. Someone at the front would ease up and everyone would kind of concertina and everyone would have to sit up and then someone would gun it at the front. And he said it looks on the coverage like everyone's just kind of riding in a line, but he'd be going from putting no watts out to try and avoid going into someone's draft zone to be putting out 400 odd watts just to try and stay. And that's ultimately what blew loads of people apart last year. So you're dead right. It'd be interesting if they could find a way to get that information across to us in a way that explained what was actually going on in terms of the tactics, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to get that from the pictures. You need to have a look at wattage, and I guess everyone is a bit reluctant to share the actual numbers as the race unfolds. But let's hope that the Ironman Live people get decent pictures this year and have a chance to properly comment on a lot of the stuff that's going on. I mean, what you mentioned is also the scenario that a lot of people get drawn into drafting penalties. It's not that they're, like sitting 3 meters behind someone, but when they're being forced to overtake someone because they slipped into the draft zone of the guy in front of him, then they need to overtake him. And if the group is large, then they need to overtake 10, 15, 20 people because there's no chance of them slotting in behind the next one. So a lot of little games going on, lots of tactics going on. And it's really different from a lot of the Ironman races that you usually have out there, where you have like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 people up in front. In Kona, you have a big group of 20, 25, 30 people up in front, and that's just completely different riding, and a lot of people need experience to properly deal with that. I mean, Patrick Lange last year, take him again, he got a drafting penalty because he wasn't able to ride well in that or deal with that scenario there. A bunch of others, it's not like they're intentionally cheating there, but the tactics that are going on there just kind of force these drafting penalties.
Yeah,
so
it's
lots of experience you need to do well there. Yeah.
All right, let's move over onto the ladies' side then, Thorsten. We're going to end up sitting here all day and talking Ironman all day. Can you see? Here's the big question. Can you see anybody taking down Daniela Ryf this year?
The only scenarios that I see involve something happening to Daniela either before the race or during the race, and that's certainly not something that I would wish on her. She's been racing so well the last couple of years that it's hard to see anyone touching her unless she's having, like a mechanical or gets an injury or diarrhea or something before the race that impacts her performance. If she's having a good day, then I don't see anyone being able to touch her. And that's not a disrespect to any of the other ladies in the race there, but just a sign of how dominant Daniela was the last couple of years.
Yeah. And do you think, if she has her perfect race, how fast do you think she could go? She set a new course record last year of 8:46. How fast do you think she could possibly go at Kona?
Well, does she want to go even faster? I mean, the way it's been in the past has always been that she does her thing on the bike. Then she goes on the run at a strong and comfortable pace for her. And then at one point she gets the green signal to go for the record from her coach or the people handling her around during race day. I don't really see her, doing something like a road effort where everything was about the record and then just trying to go as fast as possible from the get-go. I don't think that's the way she handles the Kona race, and I think that could also possibly be a scenario where she does go fast and then falls apart in the second part of the run. She'll want to avoid that. She'll be focused on winning the race, on having a solid performance out there, and on a good day for her, that'll be enough to distance the rest of the ladies at this point. And I don't think that going for a record or an 840 or going how low, whatever number you want to come up with is on her mind at all.
Yeah,
she can go faster, of course, but winning the race is 100% what's on her mind, and she'll do what's needed for that. And if a record comes out of that because she's riding well, then so much the better. But it's not a goal for her to break the record one time again.
And again, the similar question as we had with the men's race. Who do you see as being the sort of the competition for the other places on the podium there?
Well, podium will be interesting because obviously with Rinny not racing, there's at least one podium spot that's wide open, so to speak, from last year. We've got Heather Jackson, who had a good race last season, who's also had some decent results this year, but maybe not what we've seen last year. Apparently because her focus has been on Kona and having her best race of the year in Kona. So we haven't seen too much from her this year. She was second in boulder to Rachel Joyce, probably on 70.3 training. So we'll see how that turns out. She'll be one up there. And then you can basically go through the list of last year's top 10. Anja Baranek, maybe. Kaiser Sali was good in South Africa. Michelle Vesterby is always up there. Sarah Piampiano will be looking to move up. Åsa Lundström was good. Lucy, unfortunately, not racing. Carrie Lester. And then you have Sarah Crowley, who did a bunch of big races this year. Joycey is back. Susie Cheatham is back. You've got Lucy Charles. You've got Mel Hauschel. You've got Annabelle Luxford. So you've got a long list of people that might be able to run themselves onto the podium. But, challenging Daniela, different story, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Now it brings us on, actually, to talk about our British interest, as it were. And I want to start with the British interest on the ladies' side and talk about Lucy Charles, because she is sort of first pro race in Kona this year and has got the possibility, really, of setting the race on fire from the get-go. She's always been an amazing swimmer. But this year we've seen her biking has just gone through the roof, hasn't it?
Yeah, she's gotten so much better this year compared to last year. It's almost scary to see her development, especially considering that she lost a lot of last year with an injury and wasn't able to run all that well. The progress she's made has been really exceptional, and she's certainly one that'll change at least the first half of the race in Kona this year, because there's no way that Daniela or someone from the podium contenders will be able to swim with her in Kona. Maybe Lauren Brandon will. Maybe some of the usually faster swimmers that can't separate from the front group on their own will. But Lucy will be out in front, and she's been riding exceptionally well. And I see her in the lead for, let's say, at least the first 2 hours on the bike or so, maybe even longer, depending on how much effort she wants to put out. Yeah, but the question will be, okay, is once she drops back, what will she be able to do in the second half of the race? And especially with the run in Kona being so important, is she going to have the run that will be needed for a good result there? And a lot of experience is usually needed to properly meter out the effort on the bike to still be able to run well.
Yeah, and she's obviously got that experience of racing at age group level. And I'd like to think she goes out there with no pressure on her shoulders, because she's this incredible swimmer. She's now an incredible swim biker, and it's almost like she can just go out and have fun and be at the head of the race for the first 2 hours. Maybe she doesn't feel any pressure and she just goes out there and experiences racing as a pro at Kona for the first time, and has, obviously, the cameras will be around her, and that'll be a whole different experience.
Yeah, but how do you keep from getting excited and getting drawn into that race then?
Yeah,
that's really the hard part. I mean, she's the youngest pro competitor. I think she's 24 this year. It'll just be something to savor and to experience and to enjoy as much as possible, without getting, fully drawn into it and the excitement of being in the front of the race and just hammering the first 3 hours and then suffering for the rest of the day. She did race there as an age grouper, but I think racing as an age grouper is always different from racing in the pro race. You won't have cameras around you. You won't have the motorbikes with the press people around you. You won't be leading the race per se. So that's always going to be different this year for her. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she handles that. If the first couple of hours that she is on camera for a long time, and then how she handles that when she's dropping back in the field and more people are riding by her and running by her, that'll be the real interesting part, and we won't be able to see that on camera then.
yeah, of course. And what about the other British ladies that are racing? Who do you think is our best chance for high placing this year for the British ladies?
Well, I mean, on paper, and I think I have Joycey in number 2. That's based on the previous results that Rachel has shown in Kona and this year. The big question for Rachel will be how rested is she going to be, and how much will she be able to show her best form in Kona after all the races she had to do to qualify for Kona this year. As she did like 3 Ironman within 2 months, June, July, August. So I think there were like 9 weeks or so that she did 3 Ironman races. That must have taken something out of her. She does have somewhat of a break now before Kona. But I hope she was able to recover properly from that and also have a decent Kona build. Usually this amount of racing and so close to Kona is not a good sign for a good race in Kona. I hope that's not the case for Rachel, and that she is going to be able to race well in Kona. But I mean, at least it's a big question mark whether she can deliver in Kona. And I think the way she qualified is pretty much what she wanted to avoid at the start of the season, when she said she's not going to focus on Kona this year because that's what she feared would come out. Yeah. Let's see how that turns out for her.
It's pretty amazing that she made it. And I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but considering she's only just had a baby sort of a year ago, it's pretty amazing to be back at Kona in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I would encourage Ironman to look into, is to figure out a way of avoiding these type of situations for those athletes. I mean, what would have been the better Kona race if she had won Ironman Boulder and then given some kind of, I don't know, wild card or pregnancy policy or something, getting a slot after that, and having had the chance to qualify, to prepare for Kona since June, or to have her in the race now, having done another 2 Ironman races. Obviously, her being able to focus on Kona would have made this year's race much more interesting and a much bigger chance for her of a great performance there. So that's something to consider. Let's see how she's able to handle that. But a bit of a bummer for her that she had to go through all that amount of racing there. And amazing she did it. I mean, I exchanged a couple of messages with her after Boulder when she was asking, okay, what do I need to qualify? And then she went to Canada, and after Canada, I sent her an email saying, oh, well, bummer it didn't work out. It was pretty close. She needed 3rd, and she got 4th. Maybe you get a roll-down slot. But then she said, well, I think I'll just take things into my own hand and go for it. And wow, what a way of taking things into her own hand, winning another Ironman. Let's hope she'll be able to do well in Kona.
Yeah, fingers crossed for her for sure. And it's great to have her back in the race and to have someone who's got that legacy of, being on the podium. You just never know what's going to happen on the day, and maybe that experience will carry her through a little bit more than the fatigue will do. What about Susie Cheetham? It's good to have her back again.
Yeah, that's the other one that has really good chances for a top 10 or maybe even a podium finish among the British ladies. Susie's made huge steps forward too this year. 3rd in South Africa and a win in Brazil. Good results. I don't know how her summer went and how much training she was able to do there. She did finish 2nd in Dublin with a run that was pretty atypical for her, so I don't know what was going on there. But Susie, on a good day, she has the experience of having raced in Kona twice at least now. Once was a DNF, once was a 6th place, I think. So she does have the strength on the bike to stay with the best. Maybe not with Daniela, but certainly with the other front pack swimmers and bikers. And then if she's able to do that, she's always had the run speed to really develop the race from there. She wasn't quite able to show that in the last races she did, but her win in Brazil showed that on a good day she can take it up with the best of them, and certainly one of those that I would seriously have on the list for a potential podium finish there.
Yeah, man, that'd be great to see that again. Hey, especially after, which race was it where she she broke her elbow, didn't she? Was that last year? And she battled through and finished the race despite having her elbow wrapped up like it was enormous.
Yeah, that was 70.3 South Africa last year.
Right, yeah.
And I think that was in January, and by March or April, she was already back racing Ironman South Africa and validating her slot there. I think that held her back for quite some time because she still had like a pin in her elbow or something that kept her a bit. But then after last year's DNF in Kona with muscle issues, she's made huge steps forward both in her swimming and biking. So let's see her really do well in Kona this year.
Now, the other couple of British ladies I wanted to give a shout out to, we've got Laura Siddle and Nikki Bartlett, who we've had on the show a couple of times each. Really excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, Laura Siddle, first time Kona for her. I mean, she's also been one of those that's been racing a ton over the last 12 months. You always wait for it to catch up to her, but it doesn't really seem to be doing that.
She just keeps on going.
She just keeps, yeah, right. And getting better and better too. So
yeah,
we'll never see how that turns out. Yeah, first time in Kona for her. Certainly one that, with a good race execution and smart strategy, has to be considered for a top 10 finish. Again, a lot depends on how well she's able to execute that and how good a race she's going to have. I think she'll be around the top 10 if nothing happens to her there. And a good, strong run for her would mean she could certainly move into the top 10 there. To contend for the win, I don't think that she has the swim quite yet for that, to be in this big group there. But top 10 is certainly in the cards for her.
Good stuff.
Nikki Bartlett, yeah, for her, it's the first race in Kona. She barely qualified, just got one of the last slots in August. And I think she had already given up on qualifying for Kona, and I had a couple of exchanges with her when on the day that the cutoff occurred, and she was on a long training ride. And when she came back, she asked how the races turned out and if she's still in there. She's excited to race there, and I think she'll just enjoy the race there. A smart strategy for her will be able to say top 15, top 20 is I think what she said would be a reasonable goal for her, and attacking the race with that mindset of going for a top 15 and top 20 and the more conservative strategy that affords you is the right choice for her. Once she's done that, she's got a different basis and she can move up the next year. But I think, top 15 is probably what's in the cards for her, depending on how many people in front of her are going to drop out, not have a good race. And a smart strategy and a good race for her would be a great result for her in her first long season as a triathlon pro.
She was the very first interview we had on our very first show, so we've got a bit of a soft spot.
We've got Corrine Abraham, also someone who's had a really good season of a bunch of second places. Yeah, Kona will be interesting for her. I think she was 11th one year or 10th the year she had a good race. Certainly around top 10 is possible for her. Then we've got Leander Cave. We never know what she's able to do. She had just a second in 70.3. Not one of the top contenders, I guess, and top 15, top 20, somewhere there would be a good result for her. Unfortunately, she's not quite racing at the level she was at when she won Kona a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's the British ladies there.
I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah. So I guess on the men's side, am I right in thinking we've only got 3 British men racing?
Yeah, unfortunately, Will Clark, who was qualified, had to give back his slot when he had an injury in his shoulder, and he wasn't able to get in shape for Kona in time. Will would have been one of those really interesting athletes who's been making progress in the last couple of years, possibly moving into the top 10 territory, but not this year. Will has to wait another year for that, I guess.
Yeah, nasty injury. It was a collarbone, I think, wasn't it? He did. Obviously, Tim Don is in great form after his race at 70.3 World Champs.
Yeah, not only after 70.3 World Champs, but also after his race in Brazil with the really fast time that he put down there. If he races at the level that he did in Brazil, he'll be one to watch for sure because he's got the swim that's strong enough to make him stay with the front group. He's got the bike ride, at least on the Brazil level, to mix it up there as well. And his run was great there as well. So if he races at the Brazil level, top 10 for sure, maybe even a little bit more. But there's a lot of question marks what he'll be able to do in the different race dynamics in Kona with the big field, with them probably not letting him ride away from the front group. And then things just might be a little bit different with the big Kona field for him there. But his 70.3 race showed when he was third in Worlds that he is in a great shape, and it'll be interesting to see him mix up. I mean, he certainly has the experience to do well in deep fields, and we'll see how it turns out for him this year. David Mcnamee is one of those underappreciated athletes, and one of those that probably no one will really mention before the race, but that could end up having a really good day and he's one of my top 10 candidates for sure. His season has been going, he's had the luxury of planning his season around a really good Kona race. He was 13th last year, I think, top British finisher for the last 2 years, so really one of those up there. And then he qualified early with second or third place in Ironman South Africa, or third place in South Africa. So he's been able to focus on Kona since April. He's done a couple of shorter 70.3s with some good results there. Fast runs as always for him, but also solid races all around. And he'll really be eyeing the top British finish in Kona. I think 6th is what the best British result in Kona has been so far. And that would certainly be something that's within reach for him on a good day. Interesting strategy because he's always been a good runner, so he's not one of those that needs to stay with the front group, but will probably want to use the front group as much as possible for probably more mental draft than a physical draft, but to hold on to them for as long as possible, to not lose too much time to them, and then run through the field on the run. That'll be his strategy, I guess, and it could easily get him into the top 10 if he's able to ride better than he did in the last couple of years.
And I guess that brings us around to someone whose race approach is going to be the diametric opposite of that, which is Harry Wiltshire, the super swimmer.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at how much racing Harry does just to make it to Kona. I don't know. I think he's the pro athlete who had the most Ironman starts among those that made it to Kona. I think he started 8 and finished at least 4 or 5 of them. Most of the others, he had issues that kept him from finishing. I mean, he even did Wales just a couple of weeks ago, so we'll see how that turns out for him. His moment of glory is going to be in the swim. I don't know if he consciously wants to win that. Obviously, if he's within the front group, he'd rather be first out of the water again. But I guess then the bike speed of the front group, at least that's what he said in last year's, was a bit too much for him, and he wasn't able to hold on to that. Solid day for him would mean, somewhere around 20th or so, but certainly, one of those to watch in the swim and to keep the pace high on the swim. And we'll see. I mean, we talked about the swim dynamics in the female race with Lucy and maybe a number of others swimming off the front. I don't think we'll see that happen in the men's race. So Harry has a good chance of, leading a big bunch of male pros into T1 and then getting annihilated a bit on the bike.
Hey, now listen, one more thing I want to ask you about is I've been reading about the sort of the mini Collins Cup that you've got going on within the Kona race. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Right.
'Cause I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much background I need to give on the Collins Cup. Basically, it's a team event where the first race will happen next summer in Challenge Road. There will be 3 teams, the US team, the European team, and the international team. And each of the teams will have 6 males and 6 females racing against each other, and then a point system pretty much similar to what the Ryder Cup in golf is like to determine the best team. and I've been involved a bit in the Collins Cup effort. One of the stuff that I was able to help with was their a ranking, the world ranking that they put out that decides 4 males and 4 females for each of the teams. So I've been in touch with some of the captains, and I decided, well, let's have a little trial run of the Collins Cup in Kona. Let's have the different captains pick team mates for an opposing team, and then have the Kona results act as a little trial race to try out the points dynamics and so on, and just build a bit of excitement for the upcoming Collins Cup next summer. So what I did was ask the captains pick 2 males and 2 females for one of the other teams. So we have much smaller teams, but then use Kona as the mini Collins Cup there.
Right, so you're having a kind of little dry run to see how the team effect is going to play out with your kind of statistical analysis. That's really clever, man.
Yeah, well, and it was fun to get the comments from the captains too, because a lot of interesting perspectives with the experience that they have and the fun banter going on between the teams. That was really exciting to follow, and to get the emails from the captains coming in, why they picked certain athletes and so on. That was really fun stuff for me, and I hope that's something that I was able to capture in the write-up of the comments there.
And if people want to read those, man, they're going to have to go and get themselves a copy of your 2017 Kona rating report, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, it's available on my website. There's, if you go to tryrating.com, there's a sidebar. Get the rating report there. If you like the stuff that I'm doing over the year, you can send me a few dollars, so maybe I can make it back to Kona again in the future. But it's available for free. Donate as much as you like and appreciate my work. That's always something that I really like, and a lot of feedback that I get makes me smile a lot for the report. It's just fun work that I do, and I enjoy putting it together, and it makes me really happy if people appreciate the work that I'm doing there.
I'll tell you what, man, I've just got myself a copy and was sitting before our interview reading it and wiled away a happy 45 minutes. It's much better than sitting and reading a magazine with your level of analysis. Man, it gets my thumbs up, but I'm a complete geek. So if you're a geek like me and you want to go and check it out, go over to Thorsten's tryrating.com. Hey, listen, man, thank you ever so much for taking the time to talk to us. I don't want to take up any more of your time because you've got to get down to the beach and enjoy some of the Hawaiian sunshine. So thanks very much for coming on and taking the time, and we look forward to having you back on in the future, mate. Have a great time out in Kona. Right then, Hells, come on, hit me with it. Kona predictions from Helen Murray.
Now, I'd like to say this is before hearing that interview, so I hadn't heard that interview. Okay, so my list is top 10 women. Reef, Kaiser Lettonen, who has she's got married recently, so her surname is different, but Kaiser. Yeah. Then I've got Lucy Charles, Rachel Joyce, Sarah Crowley, Susie Cheatham, Sarah Piampiano, Heather Jackson, Celine Scherer, and Laura Siddle.
As your top 10?
Yep. And then my men's top 10, Jan Frodeno, Lionel Sanders, Sebi Keenley, Tim Don, Patrick Lange, James Kanama, Brent McMahon, David Mcnamee, Ben Hoffman, and there was a scribble there. So Tim O'Donnell before Ben Hoffman.
I see. You didn't tell me you're doing a top 10.
Oh,
I can't pull a top 10 off the top of my head. That's pretty awesome, though.
There you go.
So you're
I may
going
be wrong.
for...
I may be wrong, but that's so. I was going Reef, Kaiser, and Lucy Charles, and then Jan Frodeno, Lionel Sanders, Sebi Keenley. I will be totally wrong, but there you go. That is what I wrote down about a week ago.
So, men's race. You fancy Lionel Sanders taking down Sebi Keenley?
Yeah.
So you think they're going to ride together?
I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm just thinking that's how it's going to finish. I wasn't thinking massive race tactics. I was just, that's what's going to happen.
That's the fun of it though, Hells, isn't it? The fun of it's working out. So let's say Sanders has improved his swim enough to swim with Seb Keenley. So they're going to ride together and bridge up to the main pack. And then they've got to try and go nuts on the bike together, haven't they? To try and get
That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying those two come into transition with a minute on Frodeno, who runs him down in the first 10 miles, and then the three of them are going to run together.
Like an iron war, but with three people.
A three-way iron war. I'm calling it, Hells. A three-way iron war. I've got no idea. I really don't. Anything can happen.
But that's the fun of it. That's why I had to put 10 names down.
I'm calling the three-way iron war.
Okay, three-way iron war. Okay, then what about the women's race?
The women's race, I see Lucy Charles riding on her own for a long way.
Okay.
I can't see past anyone taking down Daniela Reef as long as she's not injured or more injured, which is the big question, isn't it? Oh, I just don't know. Helen. There's too many choices.
I know. Too many choices.
Yeah.
I had, I'll tell you so I also had, who else did I have? I had Eva Vuti in there. I had Anya Berenek in there. I had Liz Lyles. And they've sort of all kind of scribbled out or moved around a bit. Joycey moved up. I think originally I put her in 8th, but she moved up to 4th.
Yeah.
Lucy Charles I originally had as 4th, but bumped her up to 3rd. Joyce went from sort of like 8th to 5th to 4th. In the men's, my predictions, I did have, what else did I have? I think at one point I had Sanders in like 8th maybe. I had Cam Worth down there at some point, but no, I'm sticking with the ones I set out because I have since done a lot of scribbling out and rearranging. So yeah,
was it Patrick Langer that last year ran himself into 3rd?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I fancy him, and he had a drafting penalty as well, or a blocking penalty, one or the other.
Yep.
So I'm going to say Frodeno, Langer, Keenley.
Interesting. Okay.
But I think
Rob, I'm going to write this down.
Lionel Sanders is going to play a big part in how I think he's going to race like a brave, what's the phrase? He's just going to lay it down with no fear.
So you're saying Frodeno,
Langer, Keenley.
Keenley, okay. And the women's, you're saying?
Reef.
Yeah.
Lucy Charles in 3rd. I'm going to give her 3rd. How about that? Yeah.
Okay. Who are you doing for 2nd?
I think you've got a good call with Joycey, you know?
No, I haven't got her as 2nd.
You've not got her 2nd, but I think...
No. You reckon Joyce 2nd?
She's done a lot, hasn't she? She's tired. Experience, though. Oh, it's so hard to say. I don't know. I'll leave it.
I need a name, Rob. I need a name.
Kaiser Leitonen.
Well, that's boring.
Why?
You've got the same as me.
Oh. I was thinking subconsciously where have I got that from. All right, then Laura Siddle.
Okay.
I'm giving her a wild card onto the podium.
Okay, like it. Right, great.
There we go.
They're written down.
All right. Who gets closest? Is there going to be a small side bet on this?
No.
Come on.
No. It's just you've put pressure on me the past few years to do it, so I honestly started thinking about it last week.
Thanks for the heads up, mate.
I couldn't. Well, no, exactly. You've sprung it on me before, so no. I wrote them down on the back of an envelope, and
I like it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
It is. You going to stay up and watch?
I will be. I'm not going to be staying up all night, but I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
Watch a bit of it, definitely. Yeah. Me too.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to see how everyone gets on, and I'm just excited for the likes of Laura Siddle and Nikki Bartlett, who were there for the first time racing in that pro race. So it's going to be cool.
Awesome stuff. Right, let's wrap it up then, I guess, hey?
I think so.
Indeed.
It's been a joy. We managed to contain the giggles.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. So make sure you all tune in and watch the Kona coverage and World Championships being one of the best races in the world to get some inspiration for. Make sure you get out for a ride on Sunday morning as well. So until next week, when we'll have the results show, we'll hopefully have Nikki Bartlett on as well with a little bit of race report from her too. So you've been listening to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. And especially if you're racing out there in Kona, I will speak to you again next week. Cheers now. See ya.